mission is helping educate and helping bring our community together. You know, one of the things you'll see about me, learn about me, is that I am an optimist, and I believe that our community cares about one another. We don't always know what to do with that caring. We don't always understand how to care. We don't understand how to turn that caring into action. But when I see a group of people who got up early in the morning to drive to a homeless shelter and listen to me for at least a half an hour and listen to all my friends and colleagues, it gives me hope. So I'm grateful for you guys coming and being here today. I'm going to talk about HOMEFRONT. But before I do that, I want to challenge you a little bit, and Mark set you up for this in some ways, to, for a minute, think about your visual brain, what you think homelessness in our community looks like literally looks like, the experience of homelessness, the human experience that someone's having. Often, when I ask this question, I get answers like this, right? This is a very visible kind of homelessness and poverty. And this is real, right? These are real photos. This is what you hear about on the news. This is the challenges that you hear about folks that are living unsheltered, that are in encampments and tent cities. I'm here to tell you that there are folks in every county in New Jersey who are living unsheltered, unhoused, within probably 10 or 15 miles of wherever it is that you live in this state right now. There are people who are living in tents and encampments, abandoned buildings, abandoned vehicles. So this is certainly one type of homelessness. One of the things I want to do is challenge your notions a little bit today, and I think my other colleagues will be joining me in that effort. And so I want to start with a little bit of the numbers and the statistics that Mark was talking about before we talk about the human experience. So there's this crazy process that HUD, our federal housing agency, does every year. It's called the point-in-time count. Are you familiar with the point-in-time count? Some point-in-time people here? I hate the point-in-time. I'm sure Rich hates the point-in-time. Point-in-time is an absolutely crazy idea, which is that on one night in January, always in January, the most friendly month of the year, we are going to literally find, talk to and give a survey to every person experiencing homelessness. We're going to literally count them. So that at one point in time, we can say, on this night, there were. That's crazy for a whole lot of obvious reasons. But it is what it is, and it's how, there has to be some measures, right? We have to think of how to quantify this challenge in some way. So that is one way to think about it. So let's assume the point in time is right, although you can already imagine the many reasons why it's not right? If I just didn't happen to find your encampment, if you weren't willing to take a survey, if it was snowing, which it almost always is on this night when we pick it. But let's imagine, we'll give the credibility to the process and say, let's imagine that it's right? Because it's at least this much. It's definitely more, but it's at least this much. So in our country, on this night in January 2023, we don't have the 2024 numbers yet, 653,000 people were experiencing homelessness in our country that we could find in 1 night, 500,000. 6 in 10 of those folks were staying in a sheltered location, whether it's emergency shelter, transitional housing, and 4 in 10 were in unsheltered locations, like some of those images I was showing you earlier. Being on the street, places that weren't meant for human habitation, as HUD calls it. So this is one of the first challenging things for folks, because they often expect it to be that unsheltered homelessness, and that is a huge problem. I take nothing away from that, right? The challenges that folks who are living unsheltered are facing are tremendous. But I take it as perhaps encouraging, or interesting at least, that 6 in 10 were in some sort of a sheltered location. For the 6th consecutive year, homelessness increased nationwide. So between 22 and 23, people experiencing homelessness went up by 12%, or 70,000 people. That also might mean we just found 70,000 more people, but again, we'll take it as we take it. It's a little hard to see, but so the blue line at the top, this is from 2007 to 2023. It's the total number of people experiencing homelessness. Then the gray boxes are the people who are experiencing sheltered homelessness, and the green boxes were people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So you can see that based on the moral of the story, we're going in the wrong direction. Right? These numbers are going up. You'll also there were some breaks here because COVID, there were obvious challenges in counting people during COVID, so we really discount a lot of that. But again, for as flawed as this measure is, assuming we've been doing the same thing for the last many years, we're going in the wrong direction as a country. Let's bring it a little closer. So on that same night, January 25th it was, in New Jersey, they identified 7,400 households, which included 10,000 people who were experiencing homelessness on that night in January 2023. That's 1 for every 1,000 people in our state. 1 for every 1,000 people in our state. Our state of such wealth and such privilege that Mark was talking about. Obviously, I care about Mercer County, is where we're home based. And so in Mercer County, that was a total of 489 households, which is 714 people. A little bit worse here, that's 1.8 people for every 1,000 people in our state. Right? You know 1,000 people. Right? Think about your town and how many people are in your town. This chart's gonna be hard to see, but this is the Mercer County figures, again, what I'm most interested in. And this is breaking it down by age. You know, when you have that preconceived notion of homelessness, often you're thinking of men, often you're thinking of older folks. So these are adults 65 plus, 55 to 65, 45, 35, 25, 18 to 24, 6 to 17, and 0 to 5. Again, Mercer County in that night, 28% were children under the age of 18. 28% of children under the age of 18. I would also often think about children when thinking about homelessness. I'll think about families when thinking about homelessness. There are other federal agencies that count homelessness in various ways. New Jersey Department of Education, if any of you are federal government fans, you'll love the fact that there's the Federal Housing and Urban Development, HUD. They define homelessness in one way. The U.S. Department of Education defines homelessness in a different way. You can be homeless to education, but not to HUD. You're not homeless enough for HUD. It's insane. So education has a broader definition. They indicate any child who lacks a fixed, adequate nighttime residence. So that can include families that are couch surfing or crashing with grandma or auntie, or they define if you don't have a stable place that you can call home unto yourself, you're experiencing homelessness. So this is most recent that Ed had numbers for, but in the 2020-21 school year, which obviously was a crazy school year to begin with, New Jersey identified 10,542 students experiencing homelessness, 460 in Mercer County. What age do you think you are most likely to live in an emergency shelter in the United States? Somebody give me a number. I'm not talking up here by myself all day.
26.
17? 18? 8? 22?
35.
5. The answer is infancy before the age of 1. Before the age of 1. This is a picture taken in this room, actually. You can tell the floor. Before the age of 1. We have a baby born here about once a week, if not more. So you think about homelessness in our community. One of the things, wearing my HOMEFRONT hat, right? We are primarily serving families with kids, so I have a skewed view on this. But I want you to include these images in your head too when you think about homelessness in our community. It includes families, it includes children, it includes families that may from the outside appear like they have it all together, right? Maybe they're crashing with that auntie for a couple weeks, right? That does not mean that family is not experiencing homelessness in our community. So Mark got this a little bit, so how do you become homeless? I get asked this question all the time. So in New Jersey, the federal government establishes what they call the fair market rent for an apartment. These are actually a little bit outdated numbers, so you have to forgive me. But it's only gotten worse, so. Last year, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in this area was $1,742. It's actually higher now, it's almost $2,000 now here in Mercer County, 2-bedroom apartment. You gotta remember, 1/3 of New Jersey's residents rent. Sometimes from my place of privilege, I think all of my friends are homeowners, so surely everyone must be a homeowner. No, full 1/3 of the people who live in New Jersey rent their homes. So to afford this level of rent, and this is fair market rent, the idea that you can walk into Trenton right now and find a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,742, I would challenge you and I would hire you if you could do that, because I would be delighted to know you and your magic tricks. To afford this level of rent without it eating up the entirety of your income, your household has to be earning about $70,000 a year to comfortably afford that. Somebody tell me what the minimum wage in New Jersey is right now. 15. that wage, to afford that apartment, $33.50 an hour. So you see the problem, right? Right, the gap between, look, I know everyone's not making the minimum wage, right? We've seen wages go up, that's great news. We've seen the cost of housing far outpacing the increase in wages. So at minimum wage, and this math has changed a little bit, but it's basically the same idea. You've got to work 2 or 3 full-time jobs at minimum wage to afford an apartment that's not eating up your whole income. Yeah.
Well, I just noticed driving in here that you're looking for people to drive buses for you with a CDL and 5 years experience, and you're paying $26 an hour.
We are, dude.
And that's not even enough for that person to really make a full-time living.
Oh yeah, we could talk a lot about that.
I mean, I think that people don't realize that there are a lot of jobs that are out, a larger percentage of people now in service-oriented positions like that cannot make it because they don't have a manufacturing union job anymore.
Right. So you mind, right, and Mark was talking about this, more than half of the people we serve, and it's actually more than 75%, are working more than at least 40 hours a week, right? This isn't a question of why don't you get a job. You have a job, you're still not earning enough. And these are jobs that are critical to making our economy work, by the way, right? You look at every, doctor's office assistant and person in the clerk and janitor that cleans up in the hospital and these critical roles. Remember when we called them, what do we call them in the pandemic? Essential workers. Yeah, you look up what the pay is for every one of those essential workers. Also, less than half of adults nationwide have more than $500 saved for an emergency. So you see that this is a question of families that are living so close to the edge. We'll talk about it a little bit, but I have a hotline that families can call when they're facing housing crisis, when they're facing eviction, when they're behind their rent, they're crashing in that car, or they know that they need help. I thought when I came here in my naivete that the stories we would hear on that line would be these outrageous stories. Someone who had a house fire or a critical domestic violence incident, or lost a job in a dramatic way. We certainly hear those stories. Far, far, far more common is that my family had been living paycheck to paycheck, and we were holding it together until something small happened. It's one car wreck, it's one medical bill, it's 1 week out of work because your kid was sick, that you fell behind, your hours got cut, and you just couldn't make it work anymore. Right? It's this idea that you're living so close to the edge. Again, these are families that are working. I'm gonna skip back to that another time. If you take nothing else away from what I say today, I want you to at least consider, enter into your brain some of what Mark was talking about around housing. I recommend this book. I think it's really interesting because I'm a huge nerd about these things. But what these researchers were trying to do is understand what at least correlates with homelessness, right? This is a chart that's going to be hard to see, but basically what this is a bunch of cities, so New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, counties, L.A., Clark County, Maricopa County, right? Across the country, some towns and counties have high homelessness. So this is that homelessness per 1,000 people we were talking about before. So some communities have very high rates of homelessness. So at the top here were New York and DC and San Francisco. And some have lower homelessness. This is Chicago and Indianapolis, right? So what the researchers were trying to do here was get their hands around what explains that difference, right? If rates of homelessness are different in certain counties, well then what can we say leads to that, right? We have a lot of theories, we have a lot of ideas of what might be causing different rates of homelessness. So the first and kind of one of the most obvious things you might think is that it has to do with the level of income in the community, right? If your community is more wealthy, then you might expect there to be less homelessness. You don't have to be a math nerd like me that likes this, but this is basically the poverty rate. So as it goes up here, poverty is going up, and this is the rate of homelessness. What this is telling you is that the rate of poverty does not explain. If it did, you would think as the rate of homelessness was going up, or the rate of poverty was going up, the rate of homelessness would be going up, right? All the little dots would be like little soldiers going this way. Well, they're not actually going the other way. So as there's more poverty in the community, actually with less homelessness. That doesn't make sense. So then they're like, okay, well maybe it's not it's not poverty rates in a community. You hear a lot about mental illness, right? Maybe it's that more people are struggling with different mental illness challenges. So this chart is the rate of serious mental illness documented in a community, and this is the rate of homelessness. And again, if you would expect, if mental illness was leading the challenge here, you would see a correlation, whereas mental illness went up, or homelessness was going up. But again, it's flat and almost a little bit down again. Another idea that gets kicked around from time to time is that some has to do with like the richness of the government benefits. Like maybe people go places where there are better benefits. We actually get ragged on in Mercer County a lot about this. We're really proud of Mercer County to have a strong social service system. And so we hear sometimes from our local elected officials, of which I am one, that, well, if we weren't so generous, then maybe people wouldn't come here to be homeless, like it's some sort of surprise. So this is a ratio about how kind of rich the benefits are in the community and whether there's more homelessness. And the line's going up, but barely, and it's not statistically significant if you're a data science person. This book goes through like 50 of these things, over and over and over again. They do not find the relationship they would expect. The only thing that they found that predicted the amount of homelessness in a community was the cost of rent. The higher the rent in a community, more likely your community is to experience homelessness. This isn't causal, it's correlational, but then we went through every other hypothesis, and this is the only one, and look at how steep that line is, right? That as the rents went up in the community, so did the experience. It's called Homelessness is a Housing Problem. It gives the end away right in the title. Need here in our area, to give you a sense, so in this past year, or last fiscal year, 25,000 people were touched by HOMEFRONT services alone in Mercer County. Anybody want to guess the population of Mercer County, New Jersey? It's about 300,000. That's almost 10% of the population of Mercer County were touched by a HOMEFRONT service in some way. It's not that we're so great, it's that the need is so great. So, because we give out. I think Mark and I have both given a somewhat depressing introduction to the day. And I'm here in the beginning telling you I'm an optimist, and I think we can do something about this, and here we go, guys, we can do it, right? So I want to give you some hope, right? There is something we can do about this. There's a lot we can do about this. I will tell you a little bit about HOMEFRONT's story. We began over 30 years ago. Any of you from the Mercer County area broadly? Mercer County people you might know. There used to be, and there still are, up and down Business Route 1 in Mercer County, a whole bunch of motels. They're actually in our office is a proud pile of bricks from the old Trenton that we knocked down, and we are so glad that it's gone. But about 35 years ago, this was essentially government's response to homelessness, was more or less warehousing families in these hotels. It's no place to raise a family. The water came at the Trenton, the water came out of the faucet ground. It's no place to warm a bottle or have safe places to play. And so HOMEFRONT began when my predecessor, and a Lee, New Jersey alum, Connie Mercer, a friend brought her here to these hotels and said, look, there are hungry homeless people in your community and you should fix this. I think about that a lot, but I think, like, what would I do if someone said that to me? Like, hey, here's a huge problem, you should fix it. What she did was she started organizing volunteers to bring meals to the families in the motels, and getting every church group and Kiwanis and neighborhood group, and if you're Mercer County people and you've been here for a while, you probably got coerced by Connie at some point to come and help with the effort. And everything that HOMEFRONT is now, decades later, grew out of this experience about listening and being led by the folks who were seeking our assistance, to learn from them about what the barriers and the challenges are, and to develop supportive programs to try to support them on their journey to long-term self-sufficiency. HOMEFRONT's mission is to end homelessness in Central New Jersey. End homelessness, right? That is an audacious statement. That's not we're making homelessness better. That's not we're trying to make it more palatable to live in homelessness. That is to end homelessness in New Jersey by harnessing the caring resources and expertise of the community. Like I said, we can do this. This is a solvable problem. We lessen the immediate pain of homelessness, and we help families become self-sufficient. We talk about it a lot in terms of help for today and hope for tomorrow. And so there is a part of our work that I'll tell you about in a second that is very focused on crisis intervention, immediate support. If a family doesn't have a roof over their head tonight or needs food for their kids tonight, we're going to respond. But we're also working on long-term supports so that families can be self-sufficient long-term. We work to give our clients the skills and the opportunities to ensure adequate incomes. That's part of the conversation here, right? When you talk about that wage you have to earn, if you have that high school diploma, if you have the earning potential to raise your income. And we also work to increase the availability of adequate affordable housing. No affordable housing is a bad word, not for us. We are here to make sure everyone has a home that they can afford. And last but not least, we help homeless families advocate for themselves both individually and collectively. So that collectively, obviously, is in terms of advocacy in our legislatures and halls of power, but also as a part of this is individual advocacy of feeling empowered to go to your kid's school and fight for that IEP that you know your kid needs to be successful, right? There's a personal advocacy part of this. I will do this quickly, but HOMEFRONT has what we call our 5 core beliefs. There are 5 things we believe about the world and the way we want to see it. And our programs are organized around those 5 beliefs. First, obvious, not going to be surprising to you, is that we believe families deserve safe, secure housing. Housing is fundamental to everything else we're talking about. And so our first question is, do you have a safe place to stay tonight? Our housing work really spans a continuum. On one end, you are in one of our premier housing locations, HOMEFRONT Family Campus. We opened this up about 8 years ago. This is what it used to look like. So we acquired this from the federal government. It was a military installation for many, many years. There's a little known provision in federal law that gives homeless service providers the right of first refusal when a military facility closes. No one ever takes you up on it because it's like this, what are you gonna do with Fort Monmouth? It's 4 bajillion square feet and but this was this building and the 2 outbuildings on 8 acres, and we fought tooth and nail with local government, like I said, that I'm a part of, that would have much preferred this to be a hotel or something that paid taxes. And so we transformed this. You can see it had about 8 windows on the whole thing to this. So HOMEFRONT Family Campus here, where you are today, and you'll get the tour of the whole building, so I'm not going to belabor this very much right now. But our vision here is getting all the services in one spot. Most primarily, this is home to our Family Preservation Center, which is 38 rooms of emergency shelter that are here right now. They're fabulous. You will hear kids all day long. There's nothing I can do about it because they live here. So we are home to 38 families on any given night. Yeah.
Maybe you'll get to this, but so you got the building. How did you get the funding to change it?
We raised private funds, about $6 million to completely renovate the whole thing. So emergency shelter, we'll probably not go upstairs. There's 30 rooms upstairs and 8 rooms down on this floor, where a family can be safe, right? And we can talk more about that in the tour, about how families come to live here, how long they stay, etc. Yeah.
I don't know if this is covered on the tour, but speaking of public transportation, how do you get here?
Oh, that's a great question. It was a problem in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie. We used to run a full-time shuttle between here and downtown and other points in Mercer County. You will see many times, it'd be very disruptive actually, a New Jersey Transit bus rolling down this hill once an hour because we fought tooth and nail with New Jersey Transit. Because actually it makes tons of sense. We have the Capitol Health Hospital, which you probably saw it, about half a mile from here, and then we have Trenton Mercer Airport, right here, and the bus didn't go to any of those locations. And so, to credit to our legislators and to New Jersey Transit who saw the wisdom of this, and in the middle of the pandemic, this is actually the end of the line for the 608 line now. They didn't go to the hospital, which is another story. But if you're New Jersey Transit people, we should start with it. But so now this is served by public transit. Thank God.
You mentioned that some of the babies were born here once a week, and they actually born here.
Oh, I hope not. It has happened, but we're really trying to avoid that. That is why we're very grateful for that beautiful hospital right down the street. Yeah, we try very hard to avoid that if we can.
How often are you full?
Almost always. We are full tonight. We'll be full for the rest, and we are full for the foreseeable. There are 110 families that the Mercer County government is putting in motels as far away as Edison and Burlington County tonight. We'd much rather be here. I talked about our housing work being continued. I'm gonna skip all this because you're gonna see how that like to work. On one end is emergency shelter. We also, I mentioned affordable housing. We developed a separate nonprofit 25 years ago that's actually building and developing affordable homes in our community. If you're from around here, you've driven by them. They're in Ewing and Hamilton and Lawrence and Trenton and all over Hopewell. We have 26 absolutely gorgeous brand new apartments opening about a half mile down the road here in a few weeks. At the end of the day, this is one of the things that's going to move the needle, and we'll talk about that more as we go along, but these are some of our homes. We like to say the only reason that you know they're ours is they're the best maintained ones on the block. We take a lot of pride in being a good neighbor and dispelling the myths around affordable housing. And what happens in them, these are homes for families. And you'll hear me often, I actually hate the phrase affordable housing, because how many of you live in housing? You don't refer to the place you live as housing. You refer to the place you live as home. So these are homes for families in our community. We are now in the business of building new. We used to just renovate old, we build new. And so this is me looking stupid at ribbon cutting. So these are some of our newest hopes. Right? I keep asking where the CEO apartment is in this complex. Gorgeous. We were so excited about these. It was for our family. It's the first time they ever lived in anything new. It was built for them. Yeah.
How do you like, I don't know if it's the right way to phrase it, but how do you choose the families that get the homes?
Yep. It depends. The answer is it depends. Usually because we're funding these through private and governmental dollars. Usually government puts a structure on it that requires a process. So for these 26 apartments we're building right down here on Scotch Road, for a month we had an open application process where anyone could apply for these apartments. Next Wednesday at 5 o'clock, if you want to come, we're doing a lottery literally in our lobby. We're going to pull names out of a hat, and those families are going to get the gold ticket.
Wow.
387 people applied for 26 apartments.
Wow.
This is permanent housing. This is, in this case, we're in a landlord-tenant relationship with these clients. They are offered all the rest of HOMEFRONT supportive services. But they are paying, it depends on how we finance the project, but usually it's about 30% of their income. It's coming in for the rent. So that will scale based on kind of where they are in their journey. And so it can be as low as less than $100 a month. Usually it's kind of in the $500, $600, $700 a month range-ish based on, again, the family's income. Last piece of our housing work, and I'm not doing this fast enough, but I will, is that we do a lot of eviction prevention, rental assistance. You know, I said earlier that our audacious goal is to end homelessness. I'm not going to end homelessness only by responding to it once it's already happened. I believe in a strong safety net and that there needs to be a safe place for people to go and be safe if they're experiencing homelessness. But if we actually want to get our hands around this issue, we have to work further upstream. We have to look at the folks that are entering into the system and figure out how can we intervene 6 months, a year, 5 years before, so they never have to enter into that system in the first place. And so it's a real focus for me and a real focus for HOMEFRONT right now is to do more we call upstream diversion, upstream prevention work, where we work with that family that's fallen behind on the rent, right? How can we get you current? If you are a complete cynic and you don't care about people at all, this is cheaper.
Yep.
It is let's say a family's fallen behind by $1,500, and I give them $1,500. You might feel a way about me just giving them $1,500. But the cost to come and live in the shelter for 90 days exceeds that with a couple zeros on it. So as a taxpayer, as a human being, it's better, right? Especially when we're talking about families with kids, if we can avoid that experience of homelessness in the first place. So when you hear about organizations that are talking about ending homelessness, and they're not talking about what we're doing further upstream, you should have questions about that. I'm speaking to the peanut gallery. So we do a lot of this assistance. For a sense of scale, we have a hotline I mentioned that families can call that are facing housing crisis but are not yet homeless. Last month that hotline got over 500 unique families calling in here. Wow, 500. Yeah.
How long can they stay here?
Here?
Yeah.
The answer is, my answer is always it depends, I feel like, but it depends. Some of it is a function of how they come. We work with a couple of different referral partners. The vast majority of clients, in Mercer County, we have what we call a coordinated entry system, where families are getting referred to us through the Board of Social Services or the welfare office. Those families on average are staying about 60, 90 days-ish. We have some other specialized programs, for instance, a program where expectant mothers who are working through substance use disorder, those moms often stay longer because one of the primary goals of that program is a healthy birth. So if a mom comes to us 3 or 4 months pregnant, we're gonna stay with her through the healthy birth of that child. But for most people, it's in kind of that 60, 90-ish days space. I'm gonna do the rest of the 5 B's really fast. With the right tools, all families can succeed. All families can succeed